So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? It looks as though they were sent sometime before 11 a.m. yesterday. I hope everyone had the opportunity to review them.
It's good.
Okay. Any other discussion? Then everyone in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I will abstain. Item number 2, we have 3 items for review, and it looks as though the very first one will be given by Chief Penders. I do see that you are on the line, and so I will turn the floor over to you.
Excellent. Morning. Thank you guys for scheduling this morning. CIP is moving along well on our end. The issue that we've run into is with the replacement of the current apparatus with 9.6 is that some of the costs associated with it have gone up. Again, it's the volatility with the fire apparatus market. The refurbishment itself is on budget, but we were essentially notified by our vendor for some of the equipment that it would reach its end of service life. Mainly our extrication equipment, which is crucial. It's the jaws of life, if you will. We were able to use the existing funding to make some purchases and lock in, but unfortunately, in order to keep the refurbishment moving forward and essentially get what we're looking for and a quality refurbishment, I was looking to have another 250,000 added for July 1. The truck work itself is still about a year and a half out due to the vendor. They've been given they know that we're next in line, or we're not next in line. We're down the pike, so to speak. But in order to keep that refurbishment essentially where it needs to be, I was respectfully asking for another 250 in that item. It still puts us well below if we were to purchase a new apparatus. Just the fire truck alone would be about 1.1, 1.2 million. And then the associated equipment would probably be about another 300,000, 275,000. So we're still well below what we would be paying for, which was the idea behind this, was to keep the asset. It was in good condition. It just needed upgrading and needed work, for preventative maintenance and some other adjustments, but it would require another 250,000. Aside from that, everything else, there's no other changes needed to CIP.
So you're saying, Mike, for year 1, you need it as of July. Do you need it now if you're already placing order?
Nope, I don't need it now. I would just need it July. But everything's fine where it is now.
Is that in the 578,000 number, or does that number need to be increased?
Increased.
Okay.
So the total
would be an additional 250. And I realize it's an unanticipated expense. So I understand and we all look for prudent planning, and unfortunately the volatility with the fire truck market it's unlike anything we've ever seen.
So I think we could talk about that later. There's a couple different paths, like you said. There looks like in the end of year 1, we do have a balance of $344,000. We could look at the 10-year outlook and see if we could modify the funding, or if you wanted to take a different route, we can go to the boards and ask for a special appropriation at a fund
The other
balance.
thought too, and again, is the water tanks itself. I know that's a little bit further down. I know we had plans for a number of other water tanks. The reality is, I don't know, when we've tried a number of asking residents essentially for to be able to use their property. And unfortunately, I don't want to say the appetite, but the environment is, people just don't want to do it, or the site conditions are not really favorable. So we still have one or two, more, but I don't think the program is going to run to its full length in terms of the number of locations we'd initially thought. Additionally, the price of the water tanks, I don't kind of looking ahead, those have gone up over the years as well. So there is some thoughts there if we can wanted to partially fund it from that. I mean, there's certainly options.
And then just a question, Mike, regarding the water tanks that are currently installed. Are we potentially looking at any scenarios where we need to replace ones that are currently installed in near future years?
Technically, no. Because unlike a tank that would store petroleum products, or like a gas station where they're on a regulated cycle of replacement, these are not. We did want to, I know we've talked over the years about leaving some funding in place for maintenance, or if there was an issue. But all of them, we inspect them twice a year through the fire department, and they've all been there. There's been no issues with the tank integrity itself. Our biggest issue is the valves on the street, particularly Lenore Drive. It's a favorite to get hit by cars in the morning or late at night. The one by the country school, they're a magnet for cars. So, but those are fairly easy repairs. The valves themselves, the stone wall gets hit at least once a year.
I'll put our neighbors on notice. Don't you worry, Mike.
Right, but no, there's no plans for any foreseen replacement of the systems in its entirety.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So, Mike, I know there are two that we have already funded, and we allocated the funds. So, are you saying that the two that, or actually three now, that were already approved, that we're not going to be able to do those?
We're, really what we keep running into is trying to find an adequate space. We've examined a couple locations, and when we looked into them, there's too much rock. We being in up north, there's a lot of trap rock, and it would require the scope of the work to install it would be a lot. Rob and I plan to kind of meet again and evaluate, but I don't know if we'll be able to find 3 locations physically in town where it would be an easy, quote unquote, project to undertake.
Chief, when we started this program more than 2 decades ago, times were somehow different, and it wasn't that difficult to get homeowners permission to put these tanks in. What's changed? Why is this so unpopular?
I'm not really sure. I think it's just because it's a change to what their front yard is. I think sometimes people don't want to change that, or there's just some, and it's across the spectrum of there's older residents to younger residents. It's not one age demographic. I think people just they see it as I just don't want to have that in my front yard.
What areas are you looking at, Mike? What specific roads or neighborhoods were you looking at?
Right now, my biggest one I really want to get installed is the Legend Hill complex right now. It's one road up. There's limited access, and if there was having an adequate water supply available there for firefighting that's one of my it's kind of our target hazard right now. And also looking up around like the Farmview area. But one of my thoughts is for across from Farmview, there's a dry, quote unquote, dry hydrant that goes into the pond right there. And instead of a tank, working on with Rob and coming up with a solution for improving what's there and making it more of a draft site, because we have essentially that large body of water that we could pull water from there. And that would certainly it would require funding from this account, but it would be far less expensive because we're improving existing infrastructure. So those are the two areas that we're looking at right now.
So have you been in touch with the homeowners board of Legend Hill? And is there, I mean, you would think that their safety would be a priority, or is there just not space up there?
The space, just a real doing a site evaluation, and that would be, working with Rob and finding out, but it would be beneficial to them. It would help their insurance rating. So it's a win for them. Just a question of if they're amenable to it. I've reached out, and we're going to continue discussions to have a better idea of how we can make it work.
Chief, is there anything else town government or the land trust could do to help this program keep moving along?
The land trust was great a couple years ago for the Race Hill tank. They allowed us to build on their property up there. So there is some spots, and the question is, how do we look? Where can we put it? But a lot of times it's the properties lie on where some of the areas that we are looking at, they're on it's just on people's private property.
And at this point, Legend Hill has just gotten no response to you?
Correct.
Okay. Hi, Laura. I see your hand raised.
Thank you. Chief, it looks like in that water tank fund, we've got the Sperry Road project in the current year. Are you saying that's not going to happen, or that's already happened?
No, that hasn't. The last one we completed was Bartlett. And a lot of those road sites were put as placeholders under, previous. So we continue to look around, but right now the shift on the priority was to put one somewhere around the Legend Hill area or up on Farmview in that area of town. There was a couple homeowners on the Farmview side that we had asked if we could put a tank on their property, and they had respectfully declined. So that was where the dry hydrant idea came in, the draft site, which is across the street, and trying to build something up there. Not a water tank, but essentially like a standpipe or a pipe where the fire truck can draft, pull water from that body of water.
Mm-hmm. So those are still obviously needs, so we can't move money from there to this other equipment.
Correct.
Got it.
But there are two other ones that you're saying.
Sorry, your camera cut out, or your voice cut out.
So there are two. So if we left money for that one, there's two other ones that we set aside. And you're saying those funds could be available just because you can't do them?
Correct.
So that's 280,000 that was pulled out, allocated, that we're not going to be able to do.
So can that cover the 250 that's needed?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have to think about that. It's different funds. I have to think about the mechanics. But if we return it to this fund, I'm sure we could figure out the process to get it from one fund to the other. But it definitely makes up for the shortage. We can't just move from one fund
Yeah,
to
I
another fund.
understand.
You know what I mean? But it's all one pot, so we'll figure it out. So that definitely helps to support the additional 250 needed.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, John. I see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I was just curious for the chief, is it an aesthetic issue about the resistance to the tanks? Driving around town, I don't see many tanks sitting on lawns, so I'm assuming that it's excavated and underground.
It's excavated, and honestly, the last one that was installed in Bartlett, it looks really good. I mean, John Anako and Rob, those guys did a phenomenal job with how it looks. It's well worth. It's 165 Bartlett, and
It looks really nice.
It's phenomenal. So I think sometimes that's what people think a tank, and they don't quite grasp.
Right.
But they think it's like an above ground tank. It looks not what it looks like the Gateway Terminal, right? So they're not sure what it is. and we try and have some selling points. And there was a few people who were very interested. And then when we did the geotechnical evaluation, it was found that there was just too much rock, or it was poor utilities. That's our other kind of other hand. There's a lot of, as the developments were put in over the years, a lot of the newer ones, which would kind of be our impetus for underground tanks, just underground utilities that are there and that would preclude us from putting in installations. So there's three elements. There's the homeowner's aversion to it. There's underground utilities or the field conditions with rock or ledge that make it.
And just
really
to follow up, assuming you had unlimited funds, how many new tanks would you like to install if you could just blink your eyes and it happens today?
To be honest, I would honestly say probably 2, maybe 3. But we've built up a robust system, and we have we were fortunate to have that ability to put these in, and they're in a lot of great places. But I think also the growth, there's not as many new developments in North Madison, right? The building growth is it's slowed from when this started in the 90s. There was the large housing boom, and there was a lot of growth, but that has slowed down considerably, north of the Pines, if you will.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Al. I see your hand raised.
I'm still trying to figure out how to get some tanks in the ground. Chief or Rob, have we ever considered the merits of just putting it under the road itself? Is that a possibility if we can't get somebody's front lawn?
Is Rob on? I can't see.
I did say that he was on.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, everybody. We've never explored that. I don't know what the impact of that would be doing that. Again, these tanks are designed with a specific intent that I'm not sure if loading the top of the tank with it'll get a different soil pressure on top of the tank with trucks and cars riding on top of it. I don't know if that's something that could withstand. Also, not sure if there's any repairs that would need to be done that would also increase the cost. Part of the positive part of why we put these off in the shoulder there is when there's maintenance required, which there has been some maintenance required on some of them, like the one on Opening Hill Road by me over here at the country school, over on Woodsvale. Mike's been involved in that where they've needed some maintenance, and it's been pretty easy to do because they're very accessible. When you put them under the road, I think that would increase the cost of having to open up the roadway. And honestly, of the other few towns that I know that use this type of fire protection, by installing tanks, Guilford uses them, and a few of these other shoreline towns. I've never heard of them being under the roadway. But I mean, if that's something, you'd like more of a concrete answer to, I could certainly look into that.
Is the right of way a possibility, Rob?
I just don't think we do put it in the right of way. It's just these. I don't know if you've seen these tanks outside of the ground, but they're about 60 feet long, 10 feet in diameter. I actually have a picture when we put the one in Genesee on. My son was 5 at the time, and I had him stand next to the tank, and he looks like an ant compared to the size of the tank. They're extremely large. So there's no way we could fit it completely in the right of way unless we found an unusual location where we had, a very wide right of way. Generally, the wall, the decorative wall, stone masonry wall that we use that have the fill and draft lines sticking out of it, that's usually within the town right of way. And then those draft and fill lines go back to the tank. Some may be within the right of way, but the majority of it is on private property. The one that Mike alluded to on Race Hill, which is on Genesee, because of our physical constraints up there, because there was a huge slope leading back to the land trust property. That one's the closest to the road that I think that we have of our whole catalog of tanks. That one's very close, and that even that still encroaches on private property.
Janet, I see that your hand is raised.
Yes, hi. So just an idea. Obviously, the boards would need to go back with this, but is it possible to do some kind of a partial tax abatement for homeowners that allow it on their property?
Yeah, I have no idea. So generally, the way these easements work is, they're the town and then the fire department seeks these properties, and like Mike said, these in these locations, there's been an unwillingness to grant these easements, and what basically the town I'm sorry, the property owners grant these easements to the town at no cost, and it gives us the right to install, maintain, construct, maintain these tanks on their property. Really, I don't really know. I don't really know what the insurance sort of implications are. I know there's been this myth going around where there's this huge insurance. Not rebate, but deduction that you have one of these tanks within X amount of feet of your property. I don't know whether that's true or not. But the truth is, I'm not sure really what incentivizes people like you, Jen and Mike are correct. The one that I wasn't involved in it, so give John all that credit. John did a tremendous job getting the one installed at Bartlett. I think that was one of our better installs, and again, kudos to Mike and the property owner and John for getting that one done. That's one of our better looking ones. Not all of them, because of site constraints, look as visually appealing as that one, because it's just not possible. So sometimes it's a hard sell to people. So to your point, Janet, I'm sorry for giving you a convoluted answer, but the a tax abatement, if that was possible, which I don't know, could incentivize these installations.
And really, the hard part, with the like to Rob's point too, and what I was touching upon is that we're essentially cold calling or showing up, like a vacuum salesman in the 50s at people's houses to ask them, hey, I'm from the fire department. Would you be? So it's a hard, you're giving a sales pitch at a door, or if we know people, we're able to talk to them. So that's the other, I guess, that's the constraint, right? You're going to people's homes and kind of asking them if we could do this. So, and some of the people that were open to it, there was an individual up in the Dorset complex, and she worked in the insurance industry, so she was well aware of the benefits of a tank. And once we looked at it, one side of her house had utilities and the other side had ledge. So she was all for it. And a couple of guys in the fire department, we've asked them, and 165 Bartlett was somebody that was in the fire department. But other than that, we've looked at some people's properties, and again, there's just site constraints where we can't do it. But again, I'm not up to, I don't want to fold it completely. I'm still happy to keep, pursuing avenues, but there are limitations. And I know, Al, you were, a big part of this water tank program way back in the 90s. So it's not unappreciated or unrecognized for how much work you guys put in when you started this program.
Hi, Jess. I see that your hand is raised.
Hi, thank you. So I'm new on the committee, so forgive my my questions and so many, but this is really interesting to me, and I'm just curious. Well, one thing is I'm at 129 Green Hill, and I would be happy for you guys to come down and take a look if this is an area that you're interested in. But just for the sole purpose of, it would help our community. And I'm just curious if rather than the ownership of like cold calling and knocking on doors, and if there could be another communal like outreach of just, and maybe this was done, so I apologize, that we're looking for, we're looking for property to put a water tank on. And so if anyone would be interested, they could reach out to contact you to see if their property, has all the check marks. But this is
a good idea. We could work. Yeah, we're typically, I appreciate your offer for your property. We're essentially Warpus Road, the blinking light at the Pines North. But it is something to explore, and that's certainly an avenue, right? Social media has changed and how we communicate. So there is something we could certainly craft and put out essentially a communication to the residents and list, these are our areas we're interested in, and if you're interested, reach out. So yeah, I'm happy to work with Rob and in the town itself and how we could communicate that. It's a great idea.
Always trying to help. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
What other questions does anyone have for this item?
Bob, I wanted to ask Chief Penders whether there, in terms of the future vehicle purchases, is there any way to lock in the price ahead of time?
I wish there was. What we did essentially right now with the refurbishment, we were able to lock in, even though we're, probably this time next year in 26. So we were, but in terms of the new purchases, for example, 5.7 is the next engine to be replaced. The reality is it's very difficult. They don't generally want to. The only other option is if we know we're going to do it, I can explore it only because the contracts, even once you agree to do the work, you're usually about a year and a half out before they even build the new fire truck. So that is something to look at for the 2004 Enforcer, or sorry, the 1057 apparatus replacement. It's line 202. I'm happy to entertain, and we can start that process and see that maybe if there is an option to, how that works, what they'll do. I don't know what they would require in terms of a quote unquote down payment but it is something to look at where, it's 2 years out from 2030, 2031. So maybe there is a way, because I'm sure by 2030, 31, I put that in at 1.3, and that's the plan. But again, we are literally every 6 months to 8 months, we're speaking with the vendors to try and get an idea, but it's difficult. But that is a good point, and that's something we'll look at, that maybe there is an option to kind of lock in early or give a notice of intent that we're going to have them perform the work.
Thank you.
Jess, I see your hand is raised. Do you have another question?
So sorry. No, just did not lower that. Got it.
Okay, great. It looks as though, Rob Russo, you also have another item for us.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I guess we're out of the tanks into the coastal resiliency now, I'm guessing.
Unless there's more on the tanks that you want to review. It seemed like they sort of collided together.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm all set with the tanks.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, regard to our coastal resiliency, and our potential projects here, we've had in CIP for a while now, the Middle Beach Road West, Island Avenue, and Middle Beach Road drainage study or avenue or feasibility study. Think there was $150,000 previously allotted towards this project. This past year, the town entered in a contract with SLR Consulting for, I think the proposal was, I think it was $92,000 and change. We wound up having to go a little bit over because we had to find a different means to evaluate one of the pipes in the project area, which we had to, instead of using ground penetrating radar, we had to use TV inspection of one of the pipes. So I think we spent in 93 and change, or 94. So we have roughly 55,000 ish left in in the CIP for final design when we get to that point. Ultimately, based on the $92,000 or $93,000 we spent, we had approximately 200-page feasibility study of the project area that proposed did a full drainage evaluation, hydraulic study, and multiple alternatives for the project area. So back when this was completed back in May over the summer, I set up a meeting with the Board of Selectmen to discuss the drainage alternatives and see what we could do to mitigate the flooding in the area. The different alternatives provided, have different price tags associated with them, and the way SLR broke it out was low, moderate, and high. And they also provided their ultimate recommendation, and with that recommendation and the other alternatives, how much reduction we would see with flooding based on the 100-year storm. Based on their analysis, it turns out alternative two, which again, this was all presented to the Board of Selectmen back in, I think, August. It turns out alternative two would provide the greatest reduction in the 100-year storm event. Just for brevity, alternative two basically includes separating the watersheds down there and separate one outfall going to the Long Island Sound from the tidal wetland, and then we would realign and restructure the drainage system in that area, including the Madison Beach Club, to have another outfall down at the end of Island Avenue. So right now there's only one failing, deteriorating outfall. We would split it into two, and that would give us the kind of greatest reduction in flooding at that intersection. That alternative by itself was estimated at $1,275,465. Another alternative. This was another mitigation measure outside of the three alternatives was the Tuxas Road culvert repair. Tuxas Road was another area identified that's been prone to flooding, especially at the intersection of Prospect. So they had found an alternative that's relatively low cost, that we could add a twin pipe from Tuxas to the northeast back to the wetlands back there, and then also clearing the open channel flow that's just south of the tennis courts between Tuxas and Island. That standalone improvement is $289,510. So, based on the engineer's recommendation, to make the most significant improvement in flooding down there, their current preliminary design estimate would include the alternative two and the Tuxas Road culvert repair. So, if you add the two of those up, the 289,510 and the 1,275,465, that'll get you to the number that you see that's being proposed in the CIP this year. Again, these are based on current preliminary design and study numbers, as well as we'll probably need some additional money. We right now, we used up $92,000, like I mentioned, of that 150. When we get proposals and we move further into this project, it's likely that the design cost to move this to final design and construction documents will need some additional funding. Unfortunately, at this time, I don't know that number because we haven't moved. We just finished up this phase of the project. But to get started, we just wanted to include the construction cost for the Tuxas Road culvert repair and the alternative two as proposed by the engineer, which is separating the road drainage from the tidal wetlands.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it.
Janet, I see your hand raised. Your volume
Muted.
muted.
Can you, I'm sorry, I haven't read the presentation you gave to the boards. But
Sure.
what was alternative one? Was it a lot cheaper? And what was the downside of alternative one?
Sure. So again, I can always forward these documents if you'd like more information. I'll kind of give you the Cliff Notes version. Alternative one was just reconstructing the system that's currently in place. So basically, we have some deteriorating pipes. One pipe coming from the beach club that includes all the roadway drainage from Island and Middle Beach Road, and then all the way that extends. It's a very large system that's contributing to this outfall. It goes all the way up to Texas Road and even as far as Madison Ave and East Wharf. That's how large the watershed is. And then there's the tidal wetland over by just west of Middle Beach West on um, it's like the second property in where those two large tidal wetlands are. Basically, there's a system now that's significantly deteriorating. There's an outfall there that we continually have problems with that silts up, and we have to have our guys unplug it to get the water to recede. Basically, alternative one is to reconstruct that system, make some improvements like increasing the pipe size, where applicable. um, and But basically it's kind of a replacement in kind alternative where that number is $481,140, so just shy of 500K. But okay, I'm sorry. Let me answer the second part of your question. Based on the valuation comparison matrix that our engineer um, put together, it was relatively, that one is low cost, but the surcharging in Texas Road and the surcharging at Middle Beach Road and Island Avenue, they stated as little reduction. So basically you're going to keep kind of the same based on their hydraulic analysis. You keep a similar condition. Um, you get a minor reduction, but also, we'd be, I guess the positive is we would be replacing failing infrastructure, or deteriorating infrastructure, which it is now. The only one of the three alternatives that we have that actually shows a significant reduction is alternative two.
What other questions are there for this item? I don't see any other hands raised. Well, Rob, thank you so much for your information and feedback on that.
Thanks, Bob. And again, if anything else comes up, I have this report that's available. It's a very large file, so I'd have to send it to my Google Drive. But if anyone else is interested, even non-related to the CIP, just curiosity, what we have planned there, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you again for your time. And
All right.
Mike as well.
Thank you, guys. See ya. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, item number 3 on our agenda is citizen comments. Are there any citizens on the line? I don't see any on my end.
No.
Okay. Then item number 4, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. Thank you all. Motion has been approved. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Have a
Thanks,
good
guys.
one.